focus on the business, because once you get the basic right, the right people will come to you.
Welcome to the Getting Funded NY podcast by iSearch. So today we have Clarence, the CEO of EasyParcel, on the show. So EasyParcel is an online booking platform for courier services. So today I'll be discussing with Clarence on how EasyParcel managed to obtain 55.1 million in funding. So welcome to the show, Clarence.
Hey, thanks Benjamin for having me. Really honored to be here and share some insights that we have been through.
Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing is, could you share about the story of EasyParcel and also what are the problems that you aim to solve?
Even very early days when we first started EasyParcel, that was back in 2014, so which is about 7 to 8 years ago. So a lot of people actually who knew me, they understand that my background is actually an engineer. I'm an aerospace engineer. But look at what I'm doing now, right? It's in logistics and in e-commerce. So the entire team of us, when we first started, none of us is actually from the industry. But most of us is actually people who is actually as a consumer, who buy online, who actually sell online. So the idea actually doesn't really come from myself. EasyParcel business model is actually already available in US and UK probably 20 years ago. And I actually managed to become a user of them when I was actually in UK serving as a student during that time. And then I was just thinking why we don't really have such business model in Southeast Asia. So when I first decided to come back Malaysia to start something, the idea actually tagged along. And then also noticed during that early days, SMEs, e-commerce is still not really blooming yet. And most of the courier service providers, their focus is always on the bigger B2B customers, right? Rather than all the small e-commerce or small SMEs providers. And that's also one of the reasons why when we first started, our intention until today is still the focusing on how can we help the small micro SMEs to scale their business further on the delivery portion. And then that's how EasyParcel started like 7 years ago.
Did the business model change during these past 7 years?
Not really changing much, but it evolved even in a greater perspective. Why I said so, right? We started off as a platform, and then we started venture into working together with like convenience store, creating drop-off and pick-up points. And then about 3 years ago, we also started our own courier service fleet, doing all the milk runs and doing the door-to-door pickup delivery services. And even about January this year, we also invested in iStore iSend, which is also one of the fulfillment center. So you can actually see it's going along the line, it expand even greater, starting from a platform itself.
Okay, interesting. So currently you're helping most of the SME business owners that are selling on e-commerce.
Most of our customers are people who sell on like social channel, Facebook, WeChat, WhatsApp, because all these are the areas where most of the time they are hidden somewhere, right? It's so hard to actually find them, and then it's very rare for them to actually come out to also search for providers, especially when they are first entry to the market. Because of the volume is smaller, they can't really commit much volume, and they also wanted the best price, right? So how can we actually help them? So that's where our intention and our focus of a customer group. And as for now, we are serving more than 1 million of customers, all the small SMEs across the region.
Yeah. Okay. So having served so many SMEs and delivering so many parcels each day across nationwide, so could you share like maybe some of the business that is currently booming so that people who wish to start their own business during the pandemic, they can consider to dive into this type of areas?
I think before the pandemic, you can actually see a lot of items where you can see clothing, electronic gadgets. All these are the hype of the time when before the pandemic actually started, right? And then we actually see a dip, like a 40% dip in the first 2 months of the early days of the pandemic, because people actually stunned and they don't really know what to do. They don't really know what to buy. They don't really know what can I sell, right? And then if you compare that time versus now, the scenario changes again, because now people are more cautious to actually spend online, because a lot of people don't really know what will happen next, right? And because the pandemic has been ongoing for more than 15 months. So we also can see a shift of items that is actually selling online from all the hobby kind of thing. It changes to more to necessity items like most of us has been working from home, right? So what are the items that is actually required when you really work from home? That is from the work side, and then most of your time is also spending at home. So what other things that you'll be buying? Like example, toys for kids, right? Kids has been here at home, can't really do much. And then
Yeah.
even on the hobby portion, what can you do and what can you sell? So focus on the needs alongside when the customers actually can't really do much, but they are still stuck at home, right? So we can actually see the shift of this comparing to all those necessity item like food and the rest.
Okay, got it. Thanks for the tips. So let's move on to the funding process. So EasyParcel has raised 55.1 million from Series A and so Series B funding. So could you share with us how's the funding journey like?
Funding journey is definitely not easy because to me it's kind of like finding the other half of your partner, right? Because that's always like how I iterate it, as in like a dating process. Of course, when I'm single, we always wanted to see which one is the best match for the entire journey. And then that is always the time that is always very challenging because the market is so big and how can you going to find the perfect match, right? So we didn't really come out for fundraising in the very early days, like a lot of startup out there where we don't really go through our seed round, pre-seed round. The first fundraising that we got is our Series A. One of the reason why is because we wanted to focus to grow the business further by ourselves with our own funding so that we don't really distract ourselves. So why I said so, because to me fundraising is kind of like a full-time job. You really need to stay focused in like getting in touch, building all the relationship apart from running a business. So it actually eat up a lot of energy and time from the team members. So instead of like doing both concurrently, we started to focus on the business itself. And then because we always understand, right, when you get the first few things, the right people will come to you instead of you have to go out and shout everywhere, not knowing where and who to. So that's where our first step started off. We use our own funding, and then we focus more to build the business up until a certain level where you can see traction, when you see customers, when you see growth. Then only the time we actually go out for our Series A round.
You started EasyParcel in 2014, right?
Yes, EasyParcel was started June 2014, and then
So,
we managed to
Series A
secure
was when?
our Series A December 2015, which is about a year later.
When your business model is already
So
intact, you already know like how many sales you're getting, then only you start to go for the Series A round.
yes, at least the number will help you to do your talking rather than it's just a pure idea stage, right? Then you don't really able to catch what you really wanted, and then it will be a very long tail thing.
Okay. So after Series A, when was the Series B? And how is it different in terms of the challenges to get the funds?
Okay. We managed to raise our Series B round back in 2017. So it's not really a very close. It's kind of like quite far off from Series A to Series B as in the duration wise. Because one of the key things is also down to our business model. Because the business model itself, it actually helps us to sustain for a very long runway. We are not really in a rush on fundraising. So that is one part of it. And then the second part of it is more to, when we go out for fundraising, it's not purely just about the money, but we focus more to find out, as I shared, like it's a long-term partners. So it's like the other half, like getting into marriage, right? So when you go into marriage, you definitely look for some few points where it's not just about money, it's how can we grow 1 plus 1 to 11, right? So it's more into the strategic portion, like when we're having a new investors, how can we actually grow together with these investors to a different level, and by sharing the know-how, the experience that they have versus what we already have. So that's where when our Series B round happened, our investors is actually Gobi Ventures and also Teleport by AirAsia. So you can instantly see the strategic portion of it, right, rather than just pure fundraising.
Yep. Okay. So by having these two partners, at least you can get the synergy that you wanted instead of just getting the funds.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So fundraising is always just in our terms, we put it as a secondary, but we focus more on the strategic portion first. Like who can bring the value, a greater value to the company. That will be our key priority to select. Because like a marriage is also go both ends, right? When you choose for someone, the other party also choosing you, right? So it actually work both ways.
All right. So having raised this 55 million, how do you plan to utilize these funds?
Most of the fundraising amount is more for regional expansion because during our fundraising that round, we are just a Malaysian company. And then after that, we actually grow out to like Singapore, Indonesia, and Thailand. So it's more on the market expansion and also the local customer acquisition process.
What are the types of challenges that you face when you try to expand regionally?
Oh, there's always a lot of challenges. Like if you look at, you can always starting off from language, right? Then culture, like Malaysian, although yes, we can speak a lot of languages, but definitely we understand Bahasa in Indonesia versus Bahasa in Malaysia is still
Totally
there is a
different.
different.
Yeah.
Yes. And then even when you talk about Thailand, it's even worse, right? You don't speak Thai. So language is already one barrier. And then, of course, business model wise, you can always replicate and localize it. But how can you actually localize it fast enough? How can you make things changes fast enough, right? To adapt to what the local really needs versus what you already have. Because if you talk about a lot of modules that we already have in Malaysia or Singapore, it might not applicable for Thailand and Indonesia because how people deliver things might be different. Like in Malaysia, it's very convenient for you to use a credit card to make payment. But in Thailand and also in Indonesia, they still prefer to go to shops and perform the top up or even a payment there. So that is just one of the example. And of course, there are still many, many more.
Okay, interesting. So, how about marketing? Because this one we're talking about operational to expand to overseas, right? But how about marketing? How do you, like, for example, if you expand to Singapore or Thailand or Indonesia, how do you start to market EasyParcel over there?
I think at the end of the day, we always focus on the pain point. What are the customer really facing? And like example, when we first started EasyParcel Malaysia, so why EasyParcel versus any other providers, right? It is more to like how can you actually register an account fast enough? You don't really need to talk to an agent or salesperson to actually create accounts. And instantly with EasyParcel, you can actually open up the account within 5 minutes as long as you have a valid mobile phone number. And instantly you can get the price. You don't need to compare. You don't need to go out. So these are some of the key things, right? And then on top of that, if you talk about integration, like if you talk about e-commerce sellers, most of the time when they grow to a certain size, the volume will definitely not be just 1 or 2 parcels a day, right? So how can we actually introduce the integration process? How can they actually process their orders in bulk like 100, 500 or 1000 at one time, right? So all these are the key features that EasyParcel is actually fulfilling, which is actually helping them to enhance their conveniency in what they do. Apart from pricing that is like 30% cheaper in the market, right? Comparing to the what is market available. So most of the time is always focused on the tools.
How did you achieve so much savings for your customer?
At the end of the day, it's down to how we help our courier partners because it's very similar to like Booking.com, Agoda. EasyParcel is actually a platform connecting both ends, which is the consumer, which is people who send the parcel, versus the service providers, right? So by helping all our service providers to actually get all these smaller scale customer so that they can actually focus on bigger scale customers, all the bigger B. So in return, by helping them on the customer support and helping them on the getting the sales channel, all the marketing campaign, then in return, that is the saving that we get. But instead of we putting it all in as our margin, we actually share it out to the customers.
Okay, that's good. And
so it's kind of like a three win process lah. Yeah.
Okay.
From providers to ourselves and to the end consumer. And I think it's 4-win because you still have the people who buy online, right? So imagine if the seller who managed to get a saving on their delivery fees and then they can actually offer free shipping for their items, right? So consumer will actually get free shipping instead of just paying a very high price on the delivery fees. So it's like a 4 segment of win.
Yeah, and also for the SME business owners, when they offer free shipping, more people will buy, especially Malaysians. We don't really like to pay for a very high shipping fee.
Exactly. As long as you don't need to compare so many things, right? You just need to focus in the item itself, the review itself. Then at least you can make the judgment to a decision to buy instantly.
Okay. So besides regional expansion and also marketing for EasyParcel, these funds, any plans to utilize it in other areas?
I think the key focus will still be these 2 areas so that we don't actually dilute further on like spending on too many things where you can't really see instant results. Because a lot of time, we always wanted to do many things with just a simple thing, right? And then ended up we are not getting anywhere because we spread the eggs to too many baskets end of the day.
All right. So what is your number one advice for entrepreneurs who wish to raise funds for their business?
I think be transparent as possible because this is really your partners for a journey at least minimum of 5 years, right? So as long as all the things you shared is the truth, don't hide anything. Just treat it as the marriage that you're going into, like you're the other half of your partners, right? That's one main key importance area because the more your other partners can understand you, the better they can actually help, even to advise. So that is something very, very important as in the journey of an entrepreneur. At least you can actually leverage on their experience. Just imagine, right, if they don't really know much about you, your business plan, your ongoing, what happened next, how are they going to advise, right? Because back to the same position as in our focus is always on the strategic rather than the money terms. So how can they contribute if they don't really know much?
Yeah, but I think the challenge
that's one. Yeah,
the challenge is when the entrepreneur has started a very niche business, so it's very hard to find, say, certain investors that can match this niche business. So what are your thoughts on that? So in that case, they will just look for people who can give me funds without the strategic part. I'll just take the funds for now, just to expand further.
I think there are a few ways. First thing, fundraising process is ongoing process since day one. So you don't really go out to do fundraising when you don't have you are already drying off as in the financial portion, right? So plan well, I think, on the runway is very, very important because when you go out to fundraise, when you don't have money left, I think that is something very critical because you might not really get what you really want. And at the end of the day, you might need to sacrifice a lot because you wanted the money so bad, right? Because the company is only left like 2 weeks. So that is one portion. If like plan ahead, fundraising is always ongoing because we ourselves as a salesperson to actually represent our company to do fundraising, right? So you might never know who you meet in any events might be your angel investor because they believe in what you do, right? So, and again, it goes to what I shared. Focus on the business because once you get the basic right, the right people will come to you. I think that has already proven as in what we have been doing so far. Rather than distract yourself in going out for fundraising in the very early stage where it might be too early. And then you lost your focus in growing the business further.
Do you think entrepreneurs should bootstrap and also get the revenue numbers in first, then only go for fundraising like what you did?
I think fundraising is kind of like a booster. It should not be the one that is as in the main priority when the business started. The business itself, if you really wanted to prove is something workable, it has to be able to generate revenue or income by itself. At least you proven the first channel. What we are providing is something valuable to customers. We really help people to solve problems. Rather than you have a big chunk of money, you fundraise first, and then only try and error from there.
Because like
so
sometimes...
that's why, sure,
sorry,
go on.
Continue, go on.
That's why I always share that don't go out fundraising because you need to fundraise, right? Then it defeats the entire value of what you're actually doing.
Because sometimes like entrepreneurs, they have the idea, but then to develop, let's say, an app for this, to develop a website, to do the marketing, all these needs money and quite a big sum of money. So that's where people want to raise funds first, then only start testing on the idea. So what do you think of this?
I think it goes both ways. It can be yes, it can be no. It depends on what the founder actually wants, right? So if you do fundraising first, then of course, if you manage to close the fund early, then it's kind of a good news. But of course, during the process, you will sacrifice a lot as in the equity portion because investors will come in a very early stage. They also don't really know if what you suggested or what you do will work or not. So definitely you have to sacrifice a lot during the early days. And again, right, it comes back to if you actually bootstrap it and then you already proven what you say is true, then only go out for fundraising, then that will actually increase the value of what you said. So that is the second portion. And of course, when you bootstrap it, you will also down to ourselves do something that with what you have rather than you go out and do something else that you don't really have yet and then only grow from there. So you can always start very small, right? Like getting the same like-minded people to actually join you, who actually believe in your dreams, right? Or believe in your vision to what you are going to build, then start from there. Sometimes that would be more solid on the step by step rather than go out fundraising too early. At least you already prove yourself what I said is true, and that is already been accepted in the market. Then now I wanted to accelerate the process, and that's why I need the money to do so.
So like, let's say if they don't have skills, they can find co-founders with that complementary skills, and then they can start building and bootstrap first. So in terms of that, how do you find the right co-founder? What are things that you would look for?
Good question. It goes back to the same analogy, right? Finding partners as in the getting into marriage, right? So all this mindset and mentality is something that I always look into, as in even not just about partners, co-founders, even for team members that we interview. Mindset and mentality is the two key things that we actually focus during hiring or even looking for partners. Because at the end of the day, if it's just purely on money terms, anyone can actually go to join any new companies or even any companies out there, right? Why they are here. So the belief is actually very, very important. Even in business, you have a lot of up and down. So if the belief is not there, very easily the ship will break.
Yeah. So you have to make sure that they fit your company's culture, then you bring them on board.
Yeah, I think the first stage is always they need to start believing. And then how we work, how can we get there? That is the secondary portion.
All right. So to wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience?
I think from our end, sometimes as a founder, don't overthink. A lot of time we ourselves, we overthink too much, and then overthink sometimes is good, but think of on the positive side. How can this be done rather than overthink, this cannot be done, giving ourselves a lot of reason why cannot be done, right? Instead of like finding a lot of reason why this can be done and how can be done. So we also as a founder, a lot of time we ourselves also don't have the answer, especially when the company is growing, different stage, different sizes, different challenges, and ongoing there are challenges every day. So how can we actually be open to the team, share the concern, share the roadmap, share the plan, and craft the plan together with your team. And that's always the value in the company. How can we actually work as a team rather than just, you are the founder, you have to think of the solution. We might not know a lot of things, right?
Especially
so
now
it's always be open to the team.
Especially now during pandemic, there's so many different type of challenges that you would not have faced, say, 1 or 2 years ago. So you need more brains to brainstorm different strategies. And to get the right brains, it starts from it starts from like the hiring process, when you already know that this person is the right person to join the company, so that they can fit the culture and also think of a more cohesive strategy together.
Yes. Just imagine like 15 months ago, our culture is always coming back to the office, and then you have all the open space, everyone mingle together. But just imagine we have been working from home for the past 15 months. And a lot of new colleagues, we don't even know how they actually looks like, right? So even just about the company culture portion is already big, massive changes comparing to like before the pre-pandemic, right? So definitely challenges is not just only apply to the business itself, but it's basically anywhere in the all the verticals. So attitude, mindset, how everyone is getting ready to change, how everyone getting ready to embrace. All this will make a very big difference to a company.
All right, great. So thanks, Clarence, for coming onto the show. Check out EasyParcel down below, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, man.